Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Post. I'm Sid Rosenberg for OpenSports.com and, of course, the National Football Post. Time to get you caught up on all the wild fantasy happenings from Week 6. Let's welcome in the great Joe Fortenbaugh, the great fantasy expert and my friend at NFP. Joe, how are you, pal?
Doing very well today, Sid. How's everything going with you?
Everything's going great. It's always great to talk to you. Nobody more prepared when it comes to fantasy football than you, Joe. One of your picks for most beastly performer didn't quite pan out, though. What the heck happened to Donovan McNabb and the Eagles in Oakland on Sunday?
Talk about a bad performance. Philadelphia looked bad on both sides of the football. They couldn't get anything going. Tight end Brent Selleck was dropping passes. McNabb looked frustrated in the pocket all day. I know they got some good pressure on him, but, Asamoah wasn't even playing, and he's their best defender. He's their best corner. He's one of the top elite guys in the league. And with Jackson and Macklin and everyone out there, they couldn't get it going. The Eagles were not prepared for that game. They clearly did not have a good game plan, and it showed on Sunday with a terrible performance against a bad Raiders team.
Yeah, the Raiders put a lot of pressure on Donovan McNabb all day long. I will give you credit, though. It's not in the script. Jason Garcia left this out. But last week you did tell me, take a good look at Sidney Rice with the Minnesota Vikings, and he had a monster game on Sunday.
He did. He's been playing really well. Brett Favre loves to target him. I think he's benefiting a lot from Bernard Berrian stretching the field on the outside. Minnesota is so well balanced. They have a great running game. Adrian Peterson has been so great this season, as usual. That defenses have to key the run. They have to key the pass. There's just too much going on. Minnesota's a very well balanced football team, and Sidney Rice is the guy right now. Last 4 weeks, 393 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's really starting to come on big in fantasy.
Let's go scour the waiver wire for some help outside here. First up, you have a pair of Cardinal receivers, not named Fitzgerald or Bolden. Talk about those guys.
Steve Breston's a very popular name right now, and the main reason for that is Anquan Bolden nursing a sprained ankle that occurred in last weekend's game against the Seattle Seahawks. If he is unable to go this weekend, Breston is going to step up into that spot, and he's going to be seeing a lot more targets than he's used to. And keep in mind, this was a guy, 7 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown this past weekend. Breston is an excellent option if Bolden can't go. A third guy, Jeremy Urban, a more unknown in the fantasy world, a more unknown in the NFL, so to speak. He hasn't done much, 15 receptions for over 100 yards this year, but as the number 3, he would be stepping into Breston's role. He did see a healthy amount of targets early in the year when Bolden was bothered with the hamstring. He could fill in for some fantasy owners in much deeper leagues in the coming weeks.
All right, Joe, some performance put on by the Patriots in the snow last Sunday, offensively 59-0, and even the running back, Lawrence Maroney, got in the act. Big effort for the Patriot running back last week.
Huge game for Maroney, 16 carries, over 100 yards. He found the end zone. His best performance of the season. He hadn't gone for over 40 yards in any game prior to this one, this past weekend. But it's like we always say with the New England Patriots. They have several backs. They love to use several offensive schemes based on these running backs. It would just happen to be Lawrence Maroney's day against what's turned into a soft Tennessee Titans defense. So right now, Maroney had the big day, but a few weeks ago, Fred Taylor had the big day. He's now out for a while, but Sammy Morris is still there. Kevin Falk's still there. You can't rely on Lawrence Maroney to put up big numbers every week.
And you like Justin Fargas in Oakland, ran the ball very hard against Philadelphia on Sunday.
Yeah, Fargas could be a good fill-in. He could be a flex option for owners in deeper leagues. The problem with Oakland is the offense isn't very good, and when Russell doesn't play well, which happens a little too often lately, is that opposing defenses can stack 8 defenders in the box, 8 or 9 guys, and try to shut down the run. But the way Fargas played when he finally got a look last weekend, he had the best rushing performance to date of any Raider this season. He had over 80 yards on the ground. Wasn't a spectacular day, but it's very rare to find running backs available on waivers. He could be a guy to look at.
Joe, speaking of that debacle in New England, Titans running back Chris Johnson still managed 128 yards on the ground on 17 carries. But outside of that one monster game against the Texans, he hasn't really lived up to his first-round status just yet. However, you say now is the right time for owners to target Chris Johnson in a trade.
Definitely. If you take out the big game against Houston in standard scoring leagues, he's only averaging about 8 points a week, which would rank him, if that was the pace for the season, about 26th in fantasy football leagues. Outside of that 1 week, most owners have grown frustrated. He did have a nice game this past weekend, but he didn't find the end zone. Owners are realizing this is a first-round pick that hasn't lived up to all the potential that they've looked for. So Johnson's schedule coming up, the next 10 games or so, very favorable. He's got about 4 games on there where the opposing run defense is ranked 24th or worst. There's only about 3 top 10 rushing defenses in there. Tennessee's bad, but they're going to need to lean on him. He is their most explosive weapon. He is their best offensive player. I think now is the time that owners should be looking at picking up Chris Johnson. He's a great buy low.
All right, here it is. Time for the buy or sell segment right here. Very exciting. Number 1, Bears' Matt Forte has pretty much been a first-round bust. Buy or sell Matt Forte?
He's terrible right now, but you can't sell him off because you're not going to get anything in return. I'd recommend owners hang tight, try to hope for the best at this point because it's really not going well. Chicago is not running the ball. The offensive tackles aren't getting enough of a surge up front. He needs better play. He needs more carries. Until that happens, you've got to hang tight. If he gets that one big game, look to flip him on the market.
Speaking of struggling first-rounders, D'Angelo Williams of Carolina finally broke out in a big way, but are you buying him for the rest of the season?
For the rest of the season, yes. Carolina needs to establish a running game. Jake Delhomme has not played well this year. He's turned the ball over a lot this season. Everyone's having their way with the Tampa Bay defense this year. But the key is D'Angelo Williams is still the workhorse. Jonathan Stewart, will get some carries. But D'Angelo Williams the rest of the year, he'll be a reliable starter.
All right, 2 more to go here. Another steady performance out of Broncos quarterback Kyle Orton in the win over San Diego. Now 9 touchdowns and only 1 interception. What about Kyle Orton?
Love Kyle Orton. Love him this year. He's one of our sleepers heading into the season. That 1 interception came on a Hail Mary at the end of the half, so it wasn't even really his fault. They were just throwing it up. He's been playing great. He quietly gets about 200 or so yards and 2 touchdowns almost every week. Buying Kyle Orton.
All right, finally, Cardinal wide receiver Anquan Boldin here, Joe. Only 1 touchdown this season. Now an ankle injury to go along with it. Last one. Tell me about Anquan Boldin. And quickly, by the way, throw in Steve Smith of the Panthers, who readily admitted yesterday by himself that he's no longer a difference maker.
Anquan Boldin and Steve Smith, we'll put them together. Good buy low candidates at this point. We've seen the talent. We've seen the potential. Owners have grown frustrated with both of them. The problem with Smith is if they don't end up trading him, which it's the deadline's coming up here in a few seconds. If it doesn't happen, he has to rely on Jake Delhomme. Delhomme has not played well. Smith's numbers are going to hurt, but it never hurts to go out there and see what you can offer for him because owners have grown frustrated. Same thing with Anquan Boldin. He's got more potential, but with the injury now, you might be able to swing a deal for him for less than what you would normally pay. So owners need to be looking at that. The stock is low. It's time to take advantage.
On the way out, apologize to Jason Garcia. Sidney Rice of the Vikings was, in fact, inside the script. Thank you so much, Joe, for your work. It's always great. We'll see you again on Thursday for more fantasy football coverage right here on the Fantasy Football Post. Thank you, buddy.
My pleasure, Sid. Thank you.
You got it. Remember, you could also follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Fortenbaugh. That's Baugh for more great fantasy updates and, of course, his work every single day at nfpost.com. For Joe Fortenbaugh, I'm Sid Rosenberg. And as always, folks, enjoy the football.